Ooh, we're live. All right. Welcome to On the Bench. I'm your host for this episode, Brendan Sone. I'm joined by Zach Blostein and Chris Nee. Gentlemen, welcome back to OTB. How did the bye week treat you?
We had a bye week. It didn't even feel like a bye week. Tis the breaks.
We did have practice twice, but we got to sit around and watch, at least I did, football all day Saturday. That was fun.
Yeah, that was the best part of it. And to not be stressed out about work or the team. That was I feel like a bunch of FSU fans kind of had a relief there after the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I watched my boy Elko coach a great game and then make a not so great call on fourth down. Watched Kentucky run for 887 yards. What else did I watch? Oh, and West Virginia.
Chris,
surprising West Virginia.
Why'd you watch West Virginia?
It was a competitive game with TCU down the stretch, and West Virginia is weird. I like Neil Brown. I thought Neil Brown was a great hire for them, but he's a guy that definitely entered the year on the hot seat, and seems like he might save his job at the end of the day.
He's kicking the can down the road a little bit. Buyer Sone, Chris, sponsored by
the Turner Group.
Zach actually was anxious about something this weekend.
Oh, I'm sure he was. I don't know. I didn't pay much mind. I very much tried to stay away from the phone and the internet on Saturday.
Yeah, we were responding to Gator fans on the message board.
Oh, my God. Before we get going any further, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Chattanooga Whiskey. Great time of year to be enjoying Chattanooga Whiskey. Frankly, any time of year is, but something about the way their bourbon hits in the fall with it getting a little cooler out, get the brown sugar vibe with their 111 whiskey and cinnamon and all these great sweet flavors. It's quintessential fall. So it's great to have for a tailgate, great to have if you're sitting back watching a game. Chattanooga Whiskey, best craft distillery in the game, one of the best distilleries out there, doing an amazing job cultivating really cool, unique types of bourbons and rye, experimental finishes. So you can find them throughout the state of Florida, throughout the Southeast, really. Go online to sealbacks.com. You can find some of their entry-level basic stuff like their 111, their bourbon, their rye. And if you go into some shops, you might find some of their barrel picks as well, which is really, really good stuff. So shout out to Chattanooga Whiskey. Chris, we have a promo going at Noles 24/7. You want to give the folks a quick update on if they've been lurking for a little bit, where they can sign up for Noles 24/7?
Yeah, between now, midday Tuesday, and the end of Thursday, you can sign up for 30% off an annual subscription. That will obviously take you through a year. Or if you want to just give us a try, you can do 2 months for $1, which will take you through the regular football season. When FSU should be playing in the ACC championship game, hopefully it would span basically from now to that point in time. So both very good offers. Give us a chance. I think we'll earn your business if you haven't already been a customer. If you're somebody who left, you have the opportunity to come back, and here's a great chance, and we appreciate your business.
No, they're dead to me if they left. Just kidding. Come back. We'll take you with open arms.
What about that? What about the people that unsubbed after Keldrick Falk on the road?
All 13 of them? That's wild.
I mean, I tried to quit, but they wouldn't let me.
You never listened to on the Falk on the Road episode. I do need to issue an apology before we get into our full episode here. I've thought about it a lot the last few days, week or so, and I want to issue an apology to Braden Fisk. I think he would have scored a touchdown against Clemson after rewatching the film many times. He had a great bounce pass to Kalen DeLoach, but I think if he would have nabbed it and turned it around, I think he would have scored. So
Braden Fisk does know who Vlade Divac is, was not sure who Arvydas Sabonis is.
I did try making my European big man comp. He knew Vlade Divac. Yeah, so there's that today. Gentlemen, got a fun episode. It's always entertaining to kind of take a step back and let our listeners and the Noles 24/7 subscribers kind of drive the show, so to speak, if I can speak. And that is a special mailbag episode.
Mailbag.
There we go. All right, so going to get into it here. Going to start off with some team stuff. Going to work our way through more big picture. Going to do some buyers to know, and then we'll finish with recruiting. That's the script that I've devised here. Got a bunch of people ask questions. Going to try to get through as many as possible. If you're on page 3 at Noles 24/7 for our questions, you're probably not going to get it read. I apologize. Just got a lot to get to, and some of us, pointing to myself, like to ramble. Okay, let's get into it. This is Nola to Nola. This is his first comment in 23 months, so welcome to the board and welcome to stepping out of the shadows. Of all the fixes that were mentioned in the article about flies in the ointment, what do you think you have the most confidence in getting fixed soon versus what do you think will take longer if it gets fixed at all? So I did do something on just real quick on basically big picture things that were plaguing FSU so far this season. And it's in the context of like, can FSU be a championship team? So touched on a few different topics. Chris, what would you say is the one like thing that you think get remedied somewhat reasonably this season?
Well, I was going to give the floor to you because you are the one that wrote it. In fact, to me, it's a personal desire, the success when playing aggressively. I know you brought that up. The second half of the Clemson game is how I would like to see FSU play defense. Not even necessarily the obsession with what 40% blitz rate or so that it was. It's not so much that. I just want to see him flying around, being more aggressive, getting downhill, using the talent that they went out and added to this roster, and kind of trying to be the aggressor, dictating terms to the opponent. It's something that's irked me in the first 4 games. I would like to see it more. I thought Pat Payton played a great game at Clemson. I felt like the light turned on for him in the sense of being an every down defensive end, which is a role that he's more gravitated to this year versus what he was a year ago. And Jared Verse, I thought, also had a very good performance. If those two guys can continue to play at that level, get good interior play from your defensive line, and in general, just fly around, hit people, play aggressive football, and understand you might give up some big plays, but you also got a great deal of talent on that side of the ball, and you should make enough big plays to win games handily. That's what I want to see. I'm not here for FSU playing peekaboo, looking around offensive linemen and allowing athletic quarterbacks, which they play several of down the stretch, starting this week with Drones at Virginia Tech, Schrader at Syracuse, so on and so forth. I'm not here to just watch them be allowed to run wild because you're trying to keep them in the pocket and your inability to do so. I'd much rather FSU be aggressive and get burned than kind of be not aggressive and get burned.
Anything that you want to add to that, Zach? I don't know if you read the article. So.
I'm reading through it right now.
Oh, good.
Really fast.
Like a 5,000-word article, just skimming through it real quick. Pressure.
Yeah, just going to the weaknesses.
Zach, I'll give you a clue. The run game is probably one.
Yeah. I think they'll remedy the run game. To what degree, I don't know. Like, I don't think it's going to be, a super potent attack, maybe like last year or the years before. But I do think it's going to be capable down the stretch. And I know Florida State put a lot of time in the bye week trying to figure out kind of what's going wrong and how to fix it. So I think the run game is something that they're going to remedy, at least to a level that is capable. And then the other part was something you don't think can get fixed.
Yeah. Or that you're more skeptical of getting fixed.
I guess just opening up the passing game to some of the stuff in the intermediate level. Like, I think FSU needs to get healthy. Maybe Ja'Kai Douglas, like Mike Norvell talked about him coming back. Apparently he had a really good day of practice today, which we'll talk about. But maybe the influx of him into the offense kind of opens that up. But from what I've seen, like, there have been some plays where guys are getting open. But FSU's slot receivers or, just players in the slot, so tight ends, need to get more open. I feel like the tight ends kind of struggle with that against Clemson. Obviously, that is probably the best linebacker core in the country. So,
really good linebackers make it difficult for tight ends to get free, and pass interference calls not being called too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
clutch and grab.
But that's an area I want to see grow. But I feel better about FSU's ability to have the run game going because that's been a Mike Norvell staple in any of his offenses at Florida State and at Memphis. So yeah, I think we'll see that kind of get going over the next 4 weeks or so.
Yeah, one I didn't mention what I'm not convinced improves much. I think the at-bats per game will improve, but I think teams are still going to play keep away from FSU. I think that's, FSU is going to probably be favored in every single game they have remaining in their regular season schedule. And I think teams will just go about trying to do that. Now, FSU can be better on third down. They can try to speed games up. There are things they can do to allow themselves to have more plays, and I think they will do that. But I think there's still going to be a degree of keep away being done to them by opponents. I think the new clock rules just play into that as much as anything.
Good offenses that aren't like hot up tempo. I think you're going to see that a lot of anyways. Like Ohio State, Michigan, Miami, Texas are a few programs that were actually pretty similar to FSU for plays run this season. So like teams are going to do that. I think you just can't have like terms dictated with the tempo like what Boston College did. I think that's like the one thing that is like you can't allow that to happen. You can't have a team doing late subs and you kind of allowing that to be a thing that occurs.
You don't want to be playing 8 or 9 possession games.
No, that makes like an NFL game, and that goes against pretty basic and simplified here, but like teams with more talent want the game to be as long as possible because it is more at bats, it's more opportunities for your talent to overtake a less talented team. So you want the game to go as long as possible. So you want as many plays as possible. I think we're just real quick run game like fixes so many of the issues that we're seeing right now. FSU is not very good in third down. Big reason on offense is because you're not facing a lot of third and shorts. So if you're running a little bit more efficiently, you're getting a couple more yards per carry, it opens up more plays for you on third and short, makes a less pressure-filled play, it's just more successful. That's going to extend drives. That's going to extend plays. It's also going to put the defense on the field less. Defense has to do a better job getting off the field on third down. They're not awful at it. I think the frustrating thing is like doing some of the data and digging into it. It's like they could actually be really good at it. They put teams in third and long at a better rate than just about anyone at the Power 5 level. And they've faced some pretty good offenses as well, like in the first 4 games, at least 2 pretty competent ones. LSU's might be elite as we're still getting data points. But like, anyways, like if you fix those things, that just like getting a little bit better at running the football, which they should, like Zach mentioned, like this is something they did very well at Memphis. They've done it well during Mike Norvell's tenure at Florida State. Like if you get that going, I think that fixes a lot of the issues. Let's see, moving on to Noel Stout 916. Sorry, Noel Studo. We're already tuning in. I'm butchering names. Are Coach Mike Norvell and Jordan Travis aware of the offense's over-reliance on the jump ball and is moving away from it been a point of emphasis? Chris, what say you?
It's weird in practices, and not just in the past 10 days or so, but even leading up to some more recent games, the passing game hasn't been this jump ball offense that we saw as much at Clemson. I think the reason we saw that so much at Clemson, this isn't really a thought, it's more been stated by multiple parties. That's what Clemson was giving them, so they kept taking it. I don't think they're going to go away from throwing around 50% of the balls they throw basically to Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman. One, they're both NFL level receivers. And two, truthfully, if they catch them at a slightly better rate than they currently are catching them, FSU's offense from a passing standpoint is going to be pretty outstanding. That all being said, you've got a lot of other pieces and weapons, and one would hope maybe we see them used a little bit more. I wrote when I did the alphabet soup thing for the bye week, the wide receiver usage is quite interesting. I mean, truthfully, after those 2 receivers, it's more Jaheim Bell, and then pretty much the rest of your receivers and your running backs have kind of similar at-bats. So I think we'll see a little bit more of guys used more, guys like Ja'Kai Douglas, potentially Kentron Portier coming back. That's going to help in the sense of giving you more weapons at receiver that you might go to. But at the end of the day, I think we're going to see them kind of stick with what they've been doing. Again, if the running game gets going, it changes the dynamics of a lot of that stuff too, though, where maybe the situations aren't as readily, third and long, therefore we're going for something more vertical, things like that.
One data point that I got this week that I thought was interesting, and I think we can all reasonably watch this, fans included, and feel like maybe Jordan was pressing a little bit. And we talked about this in the last episode. Like I dismiss it. It's like him trying to get Heisman numbers. I think he's just trying to keep his star wide receivers happy. And I think he's trying to prove like, hey, the deep ball is something in our arsenal. I think some people around the program think that Jordan was indeed pressing a little bit. And so what you can do is help him out a little bit with more quick passing and more quick decisions where he's not having to make that 50-50 pass downfield and get it in more of a rhythm, open up the offense a little bit and let that come more naturally. I think that's like the focal point for this week against Virginia Tech is for Jordan to kind of not be, take off the Superman cape. Like you don't have to go ahead and make something amazing happen all the time. You can kind of let it come to you. That's what he did so well last year, was play within the offense. And when he had to do something crazy like against Florida, he could do it. It was in the arsenal, but just let it come to you. And I think it was such a murderer's row to start off the season from a scheduling standpoint with Clemson and LSU in there that I think he tried to make a lot happen. Take a deep breath. You have the bye week now. Mike Norvell talked about today, like Jordan's sense of urgency, but like in a very positive manner, right? Like that he's being very crisp and focused in practice. And so I think that kind of falls in line with like the jump ball doesn't have to be quite as prevalent. It's going to be a part of the offense. Like you're going to try to hit 50-50 shots or back shoulder fades downfield. Like that is something that you're going to try to do with the skill set you have. Just reel it in a little bit. Zach, I got a question for you from TB3 Golf 714. What causes a bigger headache, the board lately or UCF absolutely pooping all over themselves on Saturday. You're not quite the UCF fan I am. Your sister does go there. I don't know if you have the emotional tie that I do.
I have a
You have a
UCF
UCF
shirt
shirt
on right
on?
now.
Wow, there we go, Homer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any like affinity towards that school really, so I thought it was like a really fun game to watch. I mean, the last minute, even on UCF's last drive, that 4th down conversion was absolutely insane. Like that's one of the best plays of the season, and the call might be even better than the play.
Yeah, I mean, it meant nothing.
It didn't mean a lot to me. I didn't get hurt by it, but I'm sure Brendan wasn't thrilled. Do you think UCF's ready for the Big 12?
No.
Oh,
I'm still claiming a national championship, though, no matter what happens the rest of the season.
Do you think Gus Malzahn's the right guy?
No.
Wow.
I think he can recruit at a high enough level to keep you. I think they'll be fine.
I mean, they are without their
This
starting
isn't
quarterback.
UCF. This isn't UCF on the bench. This is FSU. We don't.
I just want to see you get upset.
No.
UCF on the spaceship. That would be a great pod.
Joe, FSU 2013. Given the QBs, is Virginia Tech more of a threat for FSU than Florida? No,
I'm not going to go with that Florida slander. No, I watched the VT Pitt game today. Wow, Pitt, you guys are awful. Congrats. VT's quarterback is very dangerous when he gets going downhill. He's not like he doesn't have that Castellano sudden speed, quick escapability, but he will make sudden moves. He'll make quick decisions when he does get going downhill. He's a large guy, very difficult guy to stop, and he is a guy who will make a play continue to go after initial contact. I think he has 11 broken tackles on the season, but there were plenty of moments in that game where he just drove blockers for an extra yard or two. But no, I think Florida, I know Florida's a little bit, we all want to poke fun at, but Florida's a more capable team.
Yeah, I mean, you also play UF in the swamp. Like, it's a much tougher game. I don't know if you're talking about the game or the teams in general, but Florida is a way better team than Virginia Tech.
And if you're solely talking quarterback, Mertz is pretty high percentage passer, obviously not a guy that stretches the field insanely well, but he has Pearsall who can do that for him. VT's passing offense is very short game, even as much as Mertz likes to do for UF. So I don't think Drones is a better passer than Mertz, and Drones is probably a better runner, but a different kind of runner.
The blue chicken in the comments.
I don't disagree with the pick quit thing. Their defense, for a team that has kind of always been about defense under Narduzzi, they were dreadful against VT, and they were really bad in the middle half of the back half of their defense, which is usually after a DT, usually the strength of a Pitt defense.
They lost a lot last year, and I think that's showing up. Did you guys see the Billy Napier press conference?
I did not. I saw the reaction of some to it, but I haven't actually watched it.
That was defensiveness, Jimbo. Peak defensiveness. He mentioned multiple times that I don't get these kind of questions when you lose, like you're going to get a different frame of question. He was very defensive. He was interrupting reporters when they were asking about questions from last season. Just not the walls are closing in a little bit on Billy there, so it seems. You hate to see it. Wetzner 11 would be the probably number there. At this point in the season, 4-0, 2-0 against LSU and Clemson. Would the season be considered a quote-unquote disappointment if FSU finishes with an ACC championship but no playoff appearance? Zachary, I'll throw this to you.
No, not a disappointment. You haven't won an ACC championship in, close to 10 years. Like, it's just, I think getting there and winning an ACC championship wouldn't be a disappointment. But like, if you're getting to that point and you are winning an ACC championship, it kind of feels like, not getting that next step is kind of a disappointment. But before the season, that was my expectation. My thing is, you need to go get to the ACC championship and try and win it. Like that was my, I wouldn't say ceiling, but that's what my expectation was. So no, I'm not going to say it's a disappointment.
Yeah, I'm not going to try to move the goalposts. ACC championship was sort of what I believe this team was definitely capable of, and maybe sneaking into the playoffs. I know they're healthily in that discussion now. It's just so tough to project a team to go 12-0. I know I expect FSU to be favored in every game remaining, but it's just tough to go undefeated. It's one of those things in college football that not a whole lot of people do it for a reason. You get caught one day. And if FSU gets caught, I don't know that an 11-1 FSU necessarily makes the playoffs because, LSU is a 2-loss team already, and the West is never easy, even though it seems like it's down this year in the SEC. And Clemson is sort of what they are this year, which isn't what they've been in recent years. So I'm not trying to take those victories and make them less. I'm just saying I think at the end of the day, I'm not sure how much FSU will get credit for them if they're competing with other one-loss teams for maybe 1 or 2 spots in the playoffs.
Chris, I'm glad you mentioned about moving the goalposts because I think it's post LSU game with that second half. Like we were all riding pretty high off of that.
Oh, I was ready to move goalposts then for sure. Yeah, but that's peak FSU.
I think it showed what the upside was, right? Like, and this thing's clicking. Although we're seeing LSU's defense might be tentative suspicion-y, like to steal a Jeff Cameronism. LSU has some issues on defense. But still, you saw what you could do on offense. You saw what the defense can be as well against a really good, high-functioning offense. And so, fair to say, this team has championship caliber, aspirations, which was always, the upside of the team. I just think it became more clear. But I think we all had, FSU at 10-2 going into the year. I think you beat LSU, and that probably moves it to – that was one of the more likely losses. So you're probably saying 11 wins is probably more the sweet spot. And so – I think 11 wins would be an appropriate amount of wins for the talent on this team. I think that's reasonable. So I'm not going to freak out if you go 11-1 this season, play in the ACC championship, win it. I think that would hopefully be enough to have a chance to make it to the playoffs. But I don't think it would be a disappointing season if that's what you end up doing. Let's see. Lincoln TC says, "Good morning, Brendan." Good morning, Lincoln TC. 6 days until your birthday. Any plans? I'm not sure how you know my birthday, but thank you. 2, would you say FSU's play more press, bump, and run coverage? I know they've definitely done. That'd be a good question for the X's and O's guys. They've definitely against Clemson. They definitely started playing more press stuff and try to make them more uncomfortable to kind of match some of the more aggressive things they were doing, either with blitzing or the 4-man pass rush just being more attacking.
Lastly, that was more second half than first half, correct?
Correct. Yeah, they adjusted that in the second half. I thought to be more in their face and do more mirror stuff off the line of scrimmage. But if Kev or AB are listening to this, please go into the question thread and answer Lincoln on the first page there. Lastly, I started a faceless YouTube channel on ancient history covering topics like Atlantis, Stonehenge, ancient civilizations, giants. Were giants real, guys? I'm going to post a video every day. I'm donating 100% of earnings to the Battle's End once they get monetized. Can you check it out and subscribe, please? So, hey, guys, learn about giants and money goes to the Battle's End. I think is the trade-off here. I'm fine with that. Late Republic Vibes asks, if Florida State looks markedly better in the back half of the season, it's because blank. Chris, what's the...
They got the run game going.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Because I think that balances the ship in a lot of ways with what the offense does, how they do on third down, how much the offense and defense are sharing the field in the sense of time of possession, things like that. I think that if there's one thing I hope we see from FSU this week, it's that the run game looks like it's coming.
Anything for you, Zach?
No, I agree with Chris. That's kind of where my mindset was right when
runner up for me is Adam Fuller turns in the second half. Clemson Adam Fuller.
You want that so bad.
Oh, I want it bad, buddy. I don't want it. I need it.
You can tell that they're conscious of how they kind of flipped the switch there, right? In the press conferences on Monday, I feel like it was asked multiple times with Norvell and Fuller, and they both kind of commented on that. And I thought Norvell's comment, he was asked about how they started being more aggressive, and he said a lot of not all of that is just blitzing every down. Right. There are other things that you can do on with just a simple 4-man front,
or so as he said, playing with confidence and therefore playing faster.
Yeah. I don't know. I like the blitz rate split first half to second half against Clemson was pretty staggering, and I think that's probably the main reason why they look so impressive in that second half. But I guess there are other things like Norvell was saying, so we'll see.
Yeah, it is an oversimplified to be like, oh, they blitzed more and they were more aggressive. Like that was part of it. That was a huge part of it. Like, I don't think they would say that it wasn't part of it.
Yeah.
I
but,
want
like,
a tack style. It's not even aggressive. Doesn't have to be a word. It can be a tack style. I just want FSU to realize they are very talented on that side of the ball to play like it.
Yeah.
Be that
part of
way
it
from
is-
the word go. And they've talked about needing to start faster on defense, and that's part of that too.
Proactive versus reactive. I think
Yes.
that's the biggest thing for me, because he recognized that in the Clemson post game presser. He said we were too reactive in the first half, and we wanted to, impose our will in the second half, and they did that on defense. And I think that's something they need to continue to do from the start of games, and that's going to help them start faster.
Donkey asks, was in Tennessee this past weekend for USC East and Tennessee game. Selection of Chattanooga whiskey up there is insane. It is. I've seen that for myself. I thought that was drunky, not donkey at first, which might say a lot about me. Where would you put this year's FSU team in the almost QB-less SEC this year? Same for the Big Ten if I could sneak two in. So like FSU in context of SEC and Big Ten. I mean, the top of the Big Ten, Michigan looks really complete right now, a month into the season. Ohio State has its issues, but they have firepower, and if like the quarterback play becomes decent, problematic. Penn State looks like they could get got, but good. Georgia, it's funny. Like, there's not a whole lot of like, oh, this is a dominant team right now. I think we've seen through the first month and change of the season. I think FSU would be top 3 in both conferences.
Yeah, Georgia is a team I know Georgia has their issues. I don't want people jumping down my throat. I get they may not deserve to be number 1, but they have won 22 in a row. Georgia's defense is still pretty high level. Brock Bowers is special. I think they have enough on that offense. There's a little bit of sleepwalking, I feel like, going on with Georgia personally and watching them a couple times. Michigan is a good football team. I think they're a good enough football team to play for a national title, but not win a national title. Ohio State, I wouldn't take their quarterback over FSU, so I kind of feel like they're interchangeable to a degree, and I don't believe in James Franklin football team. Sorry.
Dang.
Yeah, I would slot FSU over Penn State. Not ready to be like, oh, Alabama's dead. I know what issues they've had, but there's some life there. So yeah, I think FSU would be easily top 3, safely top 3 in both conferences. Maybe you can make the argument for top 2 if you're playing your A game. Hell, if FSU's playing its A game, it might be the best team in the country, but it's about getting there and doing it for an entire game. Anything to add to that, Zach, or should I move on?
I completely agree.
All right. Speaking of completely agreeing, this is, I think, the same order that you got, Chris, at Buc-ee's. This is from Derek R91. It's not a question, but next time I go to Buc-ee's, it's suggested that I get the Texas Southwest cheesesteak, by far the best thing they have there. I will never go back to Buc-ee's unless I just absolutely have to go to the bathroom, and it's the only place I can find. But thank you for the suggestion. That's what you got, right, Chris?
It is, and Greg did too.
Buc-ee's.
Zach, he came out and he just stood at the Subaru Outback and just was uncomfortable.
Dude, Busy Bee over Buc-ee's any day of the week.
All day.
I don't know if that's a hot take, but the Buc-ee's obsession, I just don't get it. I don't get it.
I like Buc-ee's. I think because I've been there so many times, I was fully prepared for the madness that it is. Brendan clearly was not. And
why do people not go to school or work? Like it was 2 p.m. on a Friday.
It's an attraction. Dude, if I'm going to a gas station, why do I?
I mean, they have a buck-toothed beaver running around the floor in a mascot uniform. So yes, that's kind of true. Yeah.
I feel like that's Chris's crowd, though, right?
I mean, Busy Bee doesn't have a bee running around the place, right? Have you ever seen that? I haven't.
That's exactly why I want to go to the gas station, just to see a
Kyle,
little guy running around.
Kyle Kurz, 42, Buyer Sone. Oops, this is supposed to be sponsored by
the
Turner Group.
If we keep up, maintain offense production, Keon, Johnny, and Jaheim could all go in the first round of the NFL draft. It's because he ended the sentence with a question mark that threw me off. That's just a known. The offense needs to be even better than what it is for those guys to all go in the first round.
Wait, who is the last one?
Jaheim. Though.
Oh, yeah, no. So no.
Yeah, I was known that too. I think Keon can.
I think
the other two will be dissected to death. And I think there's some things about their game that might hold him back a little bit from being a guy who's valued as a top 32 type pick.
Rob _, have your opinions that Hussey may start at some point in the season changed? I'm rooting for him. I know Chris is rooting for him. I don't remember what my opinion was. Do you think we see Hussey start at any point in the season, Chris?
He's got to have a game where he takes the opportunity and runs with it. And the opportunity may have been in one of these last two when Akeem Dent was unavailable, and it just didn't happen for him. He had a miscue, and his snaps got limited by it. So I don't know. We'll see. I thought at some point he might have to due to injury, but I feel like that window came and went. Hopefully Akeem Dent's not dealing with an injury down the stretch, and same for Kevin Knowles, Shaheem Brown, and so on and so forth. So I don't know. I would like to see him get more reps. I think he is a guy – they love talking about investing in guys. I think Conrad Hussey is clearly a guy that needs to be invested in. And they have, to the credit of the coaching staff this week, talked about having some young guys that they need to figure out ways to get them more at-bats, more reps, whether it's offense, defense, or special teams.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Zach. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say I agree. Like, I know Chris and I, before the season, I remember we were asked, like, do we buy that he's going to start a game this season, like, later on? I don't think that even despite – the injury, like they were ready to just throw him out, or the injury to Akeem Dent, they were ready to just throw him out there. And obviously when they did, he had a missed assignment. So yeah, I just think it's important for him to be comfortable and to understand what's going on. And I think this upcoming stretch might allow him to do that.
772 Noel. Throw this to you, Zach. What would FSU's record be so far this season if we never got Keon Coleman in the transfer portal? That's a good question.
Man, I mean, you look at the two big games he stepped up. I'd say 3-1. Like you probably lose one of. I mean, he scored 3 touchdowns against LSU. Like, I'd say 3-1. Like you lose one of those games, I think, without Keon Coleman.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, I think you take into account the offense hasn't been particularly great at running the ball. It very much changes the dynamics of that offense if you take one of those two NFL wide receivers out of that.
And the
mix.
fact that Tron's been out too, like think about that. Like you don't have that other option.
I feel like they have capable guys that we haven't seen used a great deal. So maybe one of them elevates and plays better. Winston Wright, Destin Hill, somebody of that sort. But like we don't know that. So much of the offense is funneled through those two guys. Next up was Jaheim Bell, so it's kind of tough to figure out what's the other pieces.
The Noel OG asks, is Chris Marv a threat for knowing play signals? He's, for people who don't know, the defensive coordinator at Virginia Tech right now. How did Mike and staff address that Auburn 2013 vibes? First off, please don't compare FSU against Virginia Tech to 2013 national championship game. I do understand the Damian Craig reference, though. I don't know.
He's been gone for like 2 years. What do we like?
Yeah, he wasn't here when Alex Atkins was the offensive coordinator. Yeah,
I don't think they change up signals every year or every game. Like, yeah, no way.
It's a strong no for me.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought about asking Norvell about that today, and I didn't have it in me to do it. So
you didn't want to get the eyes moving at different levels.
Do you think Chris Marv will feel signals?
No.
That's what you're going to ask?
No, I was going to be more like familiarity with Chris Marv and his familiarity with what you guys do at times on offense. Like, how do you prepare for that? But he's answered something on that already, kind of with the Southern Miss head coach. Like, the 2013 game was an anomaly. I don't think Mike Norvell would have that level of oversight, if you will. All right, so let's say this is more of a segment that is going to be a little bit more broader team stuff, and it's going to be sponsored by the Battle's End. If you like having a roster there that contends for national championships, ACC championships, just any kind of like competent college football roster, you need a really strong collective these days. That's just the way it is in college football, and the Battle's End can help you get there. It's the best way to actually have some level of contribution to Florida State's football roster. So Battle's End, you go to their website, and if you're a member, feel free to up your contribution anytime. If you're not and you've been on the fence, like, it legitimately helps. Every little bit does help for them. So the Battle's End is sponsoring this segment. Clay Cloud 1996 asked, what is Jordan Travis's most iconic play in his FSU career? One of the UF runs. I think the one where he has to loop around, goes to the right side. That's where I go first.
4th and 14 comes to mind. I mean, hell, the BC runs, like the first time we ever saw him, also up there for me. I think it's 4th and 14 for me. Because at that point, the program wasn't very good. Big win, rival win, singular moment.
When he gets drafted, though, wherever it is, like that's going to be the Florida play, the clip where he breaks like 3 tackles, turns the corner, and slides right before the one, which probably should have been a touchdown. I think that's the one that people will like use as like the first play of his skill set. Personally,
yeah. I mean, he carried them to a win in that game, I think. So, I mean, that's that play where he rolls to the right, I think is pretty crazy. But I agree, Chris. Like, I feel like that if you look back at the 4th and 14, like really was where he like gained a ton of confidence in himself. Because earlier on that season, we saw like he did not have a lot of confidence. And that's, he's gone on record saying that. So, yeah, I mean, the pass to Ja'Kai and then 4th and 14, like those might be, 2 of his top 3 or 4 plays of his career, in my opinion.
Speaking of confidence, I believe 2 years ago yesterday was Ryan Fitzgerald's game-winning kick, which was the first win after starting 0-4, correct?
Yep.
Is that right?
Against Syracuse.
Syracuse.
So it's kind of wild to think the Fitz journey since that time and the FSU journey since that time.
0-4 to 2 4-0s. Yeah. It's getting better. People who aren't enjoying it, please try to enjoy it. Let's see. Clay Cloud 1996. Oh, Spradlin Matt 850. If FSU and Clemson leave the ACC, could they go their separate ways? One to the SEC, one to the Big Ten. This question is probably becoming. I'm going to throw this to you, Chris. Is probably coming into foresight a little bit after a little bit of slowdown with expansion talk because of reporting from Clemson's end, people covering Clemson, I should say. Last week that said that things with them trying to leave the conference were becoming imminent, and October was kind of a pivotal, if you will, month in that. It was one of the newspapers that kind of started it off. Who was it, Chris?
The Post and Courier, maybe?
Post and Courier, I'm right. Yeah. So a reputable source, like it is a legit newspaper where more informed, more likely than just a random person on Twitter. So like to me, that like caught my ears a little bit. What would say you, Chris, on just that whole situation? And then the idea of like people got worried, I think, that FSU and Clemson were no longer tied. I would like your thoughts on that, please.
Clemson has a board of trustees meeting. I believe it's a week from today on the 10th of October. The expectation is that they make some noise during that meeting. Now, I don't know if noise means, hey, bye, guys, and like formal departure, or if it's more along the lines of FSU with President McAuliffe making the statement of financially we can't keep doing this, which was a pretty significant moment when the top person in the school's hierarchy comes out and says that definitively on the record after a board of trustees meeting where everybody in the room is supporting the idea of potential departure and so on and so forth. Everybody who kept up with that understands what I'm talking about there. I'm interested in what Clemson does say with regards to FSU Clemson lockstep. As much as anybody can be in lockstep in these situations, I still think FSU and Clemson is very much in lockstep. I believe that Michael Alford, Graham Neff, that's the ADs for respective schools. I believe they both have been very much in conference with one another throughout this entire procedure. I think landing spot wise, they would both have similar options. So, yes, I believe they are still very much in lockstep. I don't think FSU's ever been going at this alone. I think FSU's just been the one who was vocal first.
One other question kind of in that realm, Chris, but let's stick on the topic while we're here. Seminole in NC asks, can the month of October be a month for the announcement of FSU and others leaving the ACC? And also, did Texas and Oklahoma provide us a roadmap on how to get out of the Granite Rights when they exited the Big 12?
So on the Texas OU thing, I am interested to know because that feels like a significant development in the sense of it's a departure from what was thought to be the case when it all happened versus what the reality of it is. I've not had that conversation, so I won't speak further on that till I do have that conversation.
That happened this weekend because I didn't pay attention.
I think it technically happened about 2 weeks ago now, but it comes down to the financials of the departure, how much it's going to cost, where that money's going to come from, how long that's going to take, all those type of things. Again, their situation is very different from the situation of any ACC school because of the amount of time. The amount of time on the grant of rights in the ACC versus what they were dealing with to get out of their deals to go to a new league is a drastic difference. Therefore, obviously would probably change the dynamics a little bit, but it is interesting nonetheless. On the first half of that, could FSU, could others leave in October? Sure. I think anybody could willfully stand up right now and say, yes, we are departing. We intend to depart. If they're going to stick to the August 15th date, that would mean essentially they're here for this football season and all next football season. And then you go from there. I believe Clemson's going to do similar to what FSU did, where they make it abundantly clear where they stand on the issue, but they don't go as far as stating their declaration to leave. But we shall see. I know there's people within the Clemson market who believe that Clemson may declare it themselves ready to leave, which I would find interesting if they truly took the lead in that regard and went ahead and did it.
Let's see here. Missouri Null 96 asks, where now in year 4 with Mike Norvell as the head coach through 3 seasons and a third of the way through this one? What is Mike's biggest strength and biggest weakness? I will start off with strength, the bidding with culture. I think he has a really clear, concise vision for the program, and that leads to a strong culture. The things that he preaches, competing, response, like those are things that you see from the team pretty consistently. I think you see that throughout the program. So to me, that's a strength because it is so overlapping, and that's something that is a controllable. And that's another thing he talks about, control what you can control. And that is a thing that you see from him being consistent every day, and that messaging and that creed, the way he lives life there, is very much so evident in the program. As far as weaknesses, it's not a perfect team. I think the recruiting is where I'm going to say, I don't think it necessarily is to the level of the coaching and game planning. I think that's, if we're judging on it, trying to be a top 5 program, I think it can recruit at a really high level. You have enough infrastructure in place between collectives and Mike being a really good recruiting head coach, as well as having organized general manager. I think there's good things in place. I just don't think it's a staff of alpha dogs on the recruiting trail. And that's, he's conceded that, I think, to an extent, but that is something to where he has not put together a staff of elite recruiters, and we'll see if that ends up getting you or not. I don't know if it will, but that would be my weakness. Chris, I'll throw this to you. Strength, weakness for Mike?
First word that came to mind for me was consistency. It kind of falls in line with culture, but Mike is the same day to day to day to day, and that matters. I think that's how he portrays himself to the media, to the coaches he works with, to all the individuals within the building, including the team. And I think there's a reason why that team kind of believes in each other and him, is because they know what they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, always. It's not something where they have to kind of figure it out, or it feels like it runs off of an emotional high or an emotional low. It's very consistent. I think that plays into the culture, which Brendan brought up. Weakness, I would say maybe loyalty, and it kind of falls in line with recruiting. It's clear that FSU could be a better recruiting staff than they are. I think they do a very good job evaluating, developing. So there's ways to work around shortcomings when it comes to recruiting. I think they've been pretty good at that. I think they also are smart when it comes to it being a salary cap sport, which it has turned into in the day and age of NIL. But they could be a better recruiting staff. So I would say loyalty falls into that, because there's clearly individuals that aren't strong recruiters, and they're going to be here because of different reasons. And it is what it is.
Yeah, I would agree. The strength for me is the culture that he's built and the ability to add guys through the portal to seemingly assimilate perfectly into that culture every time. There really haven't been that many issues with bringing guys in through the portal. And then with the weakness, I would agree with Chris. I think, some of the hires on staff, I do think that there are some, staffers that do struggle with recruiting. And I think, that's cost them a few recruitments, for a variety of reasons. And it's not something that they can't fix. And obviously earlier on in his coaching career at FSU, they didn't really have the ammunition in the offseason to go nab a bunch of, good coaches across the country. They were not playing well and didn't have a lot to sell. Now I think they do. But we know Norvell is loyal to his guys. And that's something that has helped as well. So I will note that as a caveat. it does help to have continuity with the players on the roster and in recruiting. But I do think that there do need to be some upgrades when it comes to purely like the recruiting on the on-field coaching staff.
And all that being said, I think our weaknesses were kind of in the same range. FSU's ranked sixth nationally in recruiting.
Even this cycle, I mean, you can point to a few positions that are like, sure. What are we doing?
I mean, it's front seven defensive recruiting. It's they just
have to. We're gonna get into it. We're gonna get into it. Stop, you guys. Stop making fun of me. Quentin 80. Does Adam Fuller earn a spiked baseball during his time at FSU? Football College Coach Dynasty answers this as a resounding no. Okay. Well, for those who don't know, I assume most do, but spiked baseball is something they started under Mickey Andrews, and basically when you have a shutout, you get a baseball, with the name of the team that you shut out, and you put it in a bucket, and those stay there forever. And so there've been many during the FSU era of dominance, multiple times. I think the last time it happened was 2015. So it's been a minute. That 2013 national championship team only had one shutout. Shutouts are becoming less and less, increasingly less common in college football just because of how offenses are run and things like that. But yeah, I don't think we're going to see a shutout because they don't happen very often anymore. So
I'm on the let's FSU be really good this year train so Adam Fuller can go get a head coaching job because I know that's what he aspires to. I don't think FSU gets a shutout this year, so that's a no for me.
Okay. Oh, Buyer. Let's play some Buyer Sone, guys. Sponsored by
the Turner Group.
All right, yeah. If you're going to enter the housing market, it can be quite the process. You want experienced people. You want experienced. You want someone who's going to be able to answer calls quickly. Someone who is going to be precise and detail focus, and that's Colin Turner, Amy Turner, Becky, everyone with the Turner Group. They work extremely hard, diligently throughout the state of Florida, specialize in Central Florida, but really they can help you with their connections throughout the entire state. And there's so much experience and attentiveness there that you're in good hands if you do decide to embark on selling a home, buying a home, all that good stuff. So the market seems to be kind of evening out. Colin said that people are starting to pick up again after not loving some of the interest rates, but still it's a huge decision. You want to go to someone who can help you out and make you feel really good about the decision that you are making. The Turner Group is where we'd recommend you to go. Please let them know we sent you. They will help you out with any kind of lead that they get. They would be more than happy to talk about FSU football as well. Colin loves him some FSU football. Let's get going, gents. JMO112, Buyer Sone. He's so good at blinking. Thank you. Sponsored by
the Turner Group.
Florida State goes undefeated the rest of the regular season. They will be favored, but I will Sonone it. I think there is a loss there. That's just the most likely probability there.
Yeah, I'm going to Sonone it. It's really tough to do. You usually get caught once.
I'm going to buy it.
I love Zach.
Good job. VVJ 1992 Buyer Sone brought to you by
the Turner Group.
Do we finally see the offense use the slot wide receivers this week?
I watched VT play Pitt, and you definitely can attack him on the middle of the field. So, yeah, I'll buy it, sure. That all being said, as I said earlier, I don't think the distribution of passing is going to drastically change away from Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman, and Jaheim Bell.
If they hit 3 more of their deep shots, are people even talking about it?
It has been weird how little the slot receivers have been used through 4
games. They use the tight ends. I think instead.
But they talk about everything. They dissect it all. We're right there with them, so we're just as equally to blame.
Yeah, but
if FSU hits a few more shots, the jump ball conversation is probably lesser. But I think the lack of slot receiver usage, the slant slot receiver usage. I wrote the word slant in a practice report, and people, it was like a New Year's party.
The issue that go ahead, Zach. You got a take on it.
I was just going to say, I think some of the selection of where the ball's being thrown, in the timing of the game also matters. In the fourth quarter on that last drive, that's all they went to. You can't I know you got to pass the ball, but like you gotta get down the field. You can't just chuck the ball up every down. That to me, like, it's a 50-50 ball for a reason if you're going to throw that up. And we know Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman are talented, but like, to me, you just got to spread it around because that's also going to open things up for those guys.
I think FSU feels like the odds are in their favor with those two being the guys.
That's just not a high percentage throw.
No, I get it, but like there are enough instances on the year where each of those guys could have caught more than they've caught. And this conversation is probably far lesser if that rate is just slightly higher.
50 ball for a reason because you're not going to catch all of them.
But when Keon Coleman didn't touch the ball in one game, we talked a lot about how Keon Coleman needs to touch.
That's what I'm saying. It's
a
working.
Weird balancing act.
The fixation is if it's not looking exactly the way you want. It's what are they not doing to make it happen? Which I get. Like dissecting it's fun. I think it really goes in that the unicorns on the roster. Two of them. One is Destin Hill. The other is Winston Wright. Like those are two players that fans have been clamoring to see. They're not really seeing them a ton right now. And I think that's where a lot of like the trepidation, anxiety, all that stuff's probably coming from. I don't disagree. Balance is a good thing. Also, like Mike will go to his best targets over and over and over again in the passing game. It's something that he showed at Memphis. They're still figuring out with two of those three players that are like the focal points are new players. Like they're figuring out the best ways to use them still. We will not go the entire season without seeing Destin Hill catch a pass over the middle of the field. But like, I think a lot of the I think it's overblown. I think it's an overblown talking point. We just fixate on it. Jordan does attack the middle of the field. I think FSU's most targeted pattern this year, percentile wise, and where it ranks nationally, are crossing patterns. Like, and I'll pull that up. It'll blow your mind. Just you and your little, never mind. Your little perm. Illinois, Buyer Sone brought to you by
the Turner Group.
FSU will beat a team twice this year.
It's feeling that way with the ACC championship, unless the answer is Louisville.
Ooh, well, so in play for that would be UNC or Miami. That's going to.
I don't believe in UNC. It's still coached by Mac Brown, right?
So Miami then is what you're on the Miami train.
Maybe I'm not on the Miami train.
Well, you just said you're not on you. Okay, so
I'm still on that Duke train. I love me some Mike Elko. I know Riley Leonard got hurt. Still love him.
Okay.
So you're just going to ignore the fact that they're the entire.
I expect Miami to beat UNC, so therefore I would take Miami over UNC, which pains me because I despise those guys.
It will. I'm sorry because Clemson, I think, will probably figure stuff out by the end of the year, but they're two in the hole like already. Like they're too far.
Plus, they're going to lose one more game. I think. Like they have a really tough schedule.
So, I don't know what to make of Louisville. I've watched them twice. They haven't been overly impressive in either, but they've yet to lose.
Yeah, they play. I mean, that was talked about before. They play a pretty
soft
schedule.
Yeah, they miss like three of the best teams in the ACC.
NWF 0850 Buyer Sone brought to you by
the Turner Group.
Yourself, Dane, or Zach are waiting for a call to fill in if Rosenberry can't go on Saturday. I think James will be okay. Sone, I don't think that there'd be a lot of options to long snap before any of us three.
I'm Sononing that because I believe from long snap to set to kick, it's 1.5 seconds, if even that. It's like 1.45, 1.5, something like that. Yeah, none of us are executing that.
Yeah, I'd probably get like hit in the shin again.
What was concerning? Farm D Null, Buyer Sone. FSU flips more blue chip prospects than it gets flipped. He does not count process, quote unquote, kinds of being flipped, like the Tavian Gadsden one to UNC. So more FSU does more flipping. Hey, should I write an article on flipping by any chance?
Yeah, you should say flips coming tomorrow.
I didn't say imminently.
That's what everyone. You said upcoming flips? Question.
Yeah, I think they'll get a flip in the next month.
Oh,
all right. So who are the flip candidates from FSU? Bolden, Charles Lester, which I don't even feel like I need to throw in there, but I will because he's visited elsewhere. Is there anybody else?
I mean, Lewayne McCoy, he's still being pursued by other schools. I mean, a lot of these guys, like, unless they're just not saying stuff publicly, which could be the case.
Maybe Landon Thomas.
Yeah, but he's all but.
I feel Landon's really firm. Yeah.
I mean, last time we
then-
spoke to him, he said he shut it down.
I know Brendan wrote about 15 guys that are on the verge of flipping to FSU, but like a few that
No,
we've
that's not what I
highlighted
wrote.
You said they're
Sure.
all happening.
Jeremiah Smith's obviously one that we've written a lot about, talked a lot about. They're obviously clearly in deep with him in the sense of doing it. Who else would you put kind of in that category, Zach?
Of Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah, of a guy that you know it's abundantly clear FSU is making a massive effort to try to do that.
I mean, the three receivers like JoJo Trader, Jeremiah Smith, and Keon Coleman, like they are aggressively pursuing those guys. I think along the D line, Artavius Jones and Nasir Johnson are the two to watch as far as the interior. And then on the edge, I mean, there could be a number of guys that pop up on FSU's campus over the next couple of months. We'll see. But I mean, the most notable I think right now is Jordan Boyd, the Georgia Tech commit. He's kind of undersized a little bit, but I mean, he's got twitch and athleticism, and I think he's a guy they like, and he'll be on campus this weekend. So,
yeah, I was told he's about 230 right now. I know he's listed around 220 in linebacker. He's an edge for FSU. He's around 230 is what I was told.
I like his senior film. It's pretty impressive. He's been productive. Like I think in this last game, he had 2.5 sacks. So, yeah, I mean, he's a guy that I think they're going to continue to evaluate and recruit, and we'll kind of see where things go.
So do we buy or Sone whether FSU would flip more than get flipped from a blue chip?
I'll buy it.
I'll buy. I think it's more likely FSU is a flipper than a flippy.
Okay. And I think it's just that makes sense, Chris. And I think it's just a
flipper or flipped.
FSU can potentially flip. There's probably like about 10 to 12 players that you can say on the blue chip range that FSU could flip, whereas like you could maybe lose. I don't think they're going to lose 4, but I'm saying like it's just the odds perspective. I'm not going to talk about flips. I'm not going to talk about odds anymore. Sorry that I wrote that FSU might flip 2 players in this class. That was crazy. Where was I?
In your feels.
Z Firestone, buy or Sone. You're welcome for helping us hit our bonus in October with that story, guys. Buy or Sone. If we can't run the ball successfully against Virginia Tech this week, the issue won't be fixed this season. I hate like being so absolute with it. Like if it doesn't happen this 1 week, then it's done. But like it going from being a concern to me, and if it doesn't happen against Virginia Tech, then I think it becomes an alarming concern, maybe.
Yeah, especially coming off a bye, because it's something they invested time in. They went back and collected data points on, watched video on, tried to figure out what they were doing effectively versus what was not working. And you would presume play calling follow suit with what they believe they can be most effective at. So you would hope to see progress and growth in it. But it's also weird. Teams evolve constantly, and Mike Norvell teams certainly evolve in season. They develop in season, they change in season, and they get better in season. So I don't want to quite go panic button on it, but I think it would be concerning if we don't see it look markedly better. Not necessarily explosive and great, but just like it's something they can actually go to and feel confident in. And it certainly wasn't in Death Valley against a very good Clemson defense.
Well, yeah, I don't think you're going to see 22 rushing yards again, but like even BC where it wasn't really.
But like there's a hole. Did he get to the hole? Did he make a play happen when he hit the hole? Did he take a good track? Are guys putting helmets on helmets when they're trying to block? Are guys getting to the spot when they're trying to move on pools and such? Things like that are the things I think you can look for and see, is there improvement in that regard versus what we've seen through 4.
Virginia Tech is 107th nationally in yards per carry allowed, and they've played.
They shut down Pitt, and everybody else ran really well against them. I think Rutgers ran for like 240, 250 against them. Rutgers put a ton of ground game on them.
Can Pitt run the ball at all? Like, is that a thing? I know traditionally.
Watching that video, no. I don't know what Pitt's done on the season.
No, they're 109th. They're not good.
Yeah.
They're not good at running the football.
And
so
Jerkovich is lost right now. I mean, he looks awful back there. That offense, Pitt stinks.
Sukovich.
If Narduzzi can get that Michigan State job, he should be running for the hills.
Walk with JPBT. Buy or Sone, sponsored by
the Turner Group.
It's kind of related to the last question, but Chris, I want you to get your thoughts on this. The self-scouting performed by Atkins during the bye week leads to new offensive line platoons that we have not yet seen, either new players in platoon groups or positional reassignments in that platoon group.
Overall, Sonoing it. I think Darius Washington will be somebody they look at using more at tackle because Maurice Smith is now healthy. To clarify something I've said here about this, I don't think they were comfortable moving Darius outside while Maurice was working his way back, not available, because it falls off a cliff after Darius from a snapping standpoint. Obviously, you still worry about Maurice getting hurt, but at some point, you use Darius as a swing. You believe in him as a swing. He can be a tackle. I think we see him as a guy, if Byers has another showing as he did in Clemson, where they would not hesitate to go quickly to him. We believe Robert Scott's on the way back. Mike Norvell has talked about this on Monday. We saw him practice today. Robert Scott coming back changes dynamics, but I think it more influences the way Bless Harris is used than anything else. I don't think we see Byers move to guard. I don't think FSU's going to do that. I think the investment has been in him as a tackle, and they're going to stick with that, at least for the foreseeable future. I don't think anything drastically changes with the guards. At this point, I view Meach and Keandre Jones as a platoon. They speak about it as they rotate those guys. I will be interested when Scott returns, presumably possibly as early as this weekend, how they use him, how they use Harris, if there's a rotation there, how much Scott can go. That's probably the most intriguing thing to me. I don't think we see drastic changes, though. I think they believe in that group of 5 to 8, and they're going to kind of stick with how they've been using them.
The way Atkins talked about it during the Monday presser, Chris, I took it more to be like, they'll change up some scheme stuff. I don't know drastically, but like maybe less counter. Like that, the way he talked about like finding out the things that our guys do well, I thought it was more them altering what they do from an assignment perspective than it was, we're going to do a wholesale change to our.
Yeah, he spoke about how he leans into some of the stuff he really likes, and maybe that's not the best for this group. I think he kind of said that, to paraphrase, on Monday.
Kind of a cool thing for a coach to say. Like, you don't hear that very often.
I mean, I think you said it after the Monday. I thought, go watch Alex Atkins' Monday presser. I thought it was very good. I thought he was very straightforward, very informative. When it's teaching points and what you're doing and how you're going about the process and doing it, I think that's where he shines in the sense of how he thinks and how he operates as a football coach.
By or Sone, sponsored by
the Turner Group.
For you, Zach, we see FSU be much more aggressive on defense from now on. Basically, Clemson's second half is the new normal.
Sone, I don't think it's going to be as aggressive as like a 5% blitz rate, but I do think it's going to be more aggressive. I don't think it's going to be super aggressive. Is that's what you asked in the question. So also known that, but I do think they're going to be trying to be the aggressor in games coming up, and I guess we'll see how that goes. But I do think that's something that they're conscious of and that they're going to do.
Chris, I'll let you have this one too, because I know you're jonesing for it.
Zach hurts my feelings.
You think they're gonna? Dude,
no, I don't think they're gonna drastically change. We have 4 years of context to this conversation.
Exactly.
They're not gonna suddenly, pivot and completely change. That being said, I think the defensive personnel may play a little bit more aggressively in the sense of understanding they're far more effective when they do that.
More attacking, Chris, not aggressive.
Yes.
Changing the way we talk about it.
Yeah, I think that second half at Clemson probably provided some film and feedback that those guys needed. A guy like Patrick Payton very much came out of his shell and played the best game he has, maybe in an FSU uniform, and certainly this season in his role. And I think, as more guys have that moment, I think it's a positive for them as a whole. They also need to start better.
Big picture, like Braden Fisk talked about this today, which Braden Fisk was a fun interview, and like the amount of like maturity he has. Like he's talking about like defensive scheme. He's like, well, there's things that you're going to try to do during the course of a game that you are not just thinking about in that singular game, but you're thinking about it like throughout the course of a season. Like we're putting this on film this week. Well, what does that do next week? And like to further that point, like I think Adam Fuller's viewpoint and philosophy as a defensive coordinator, he talked about this last year. It stuck with me. He doesn't want to necessarily, like one reason why he doesn't call a lot of blitzes, and when he does, it's really effective because he plays percentages and like what's the best play in that moment. But he doesn't want to really take the game over from his players and force the issue. He wants to let their play kind of do it. But what they talked about this week was starting faster, and that needed to be like more urgency at the beginning of a game. And God, this is giving me like 2014 vibes talking about starting faster, Chris. It does have this innate like a triggering point. But I do wonder if like the change that we see is like, not this full like Zach 45% blitzing and a half type of deal, but if you do dial things up, whether it's like, hey, our front four, go get the quarterback. Like, don't do the mush push, like contain thing. Like, go get it. Or we do more press coverage, or maybe a little bit more blitzing. Whatever it is you do tactically, if you do a little bit more earlier on in the game, sprinkle in to kind of try to get the guys like playing with that aggressiveness, that attacking style. Like, I think that's what I'm going to buy on. Like, I think we see that more. I think you've realized that's what works, that this group needs right now at this stage in their like maturity process. And if you go throughout the year, they get more mature. Like, okay, you can go more vanilla in the first half, make your second half adjustments, and go in for the kill. Then, like, okay, that's a strategy that works, but you may have to kind of take that over as a play caller for a little bit where this team's at. Noel Chris 2020, buy or Sone, PB, TTG, presented by the Turner Group. I got it. FSU plays an ACC conference game in California. Chris, Packer basketball Alto?
It would start next year, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
So probably.
Oh, Jesus.
Joy.
Cali, baby.
I can't wait for those back-to-back basketball games out there. That Thursday, Sunday, California swing is going to be a hell of a time.
Buy or Sone, Chris is going to go cover that, Zach.
Bye.
I hate that. Dr.
The
Noel.
company needs me too, boys.
Buy or Sone, Alex Mastromono is an elite punter, averaging, I think, 47 yards a punt. That's top 10 nationally.
He was really good against Clemson. And if you take the 33-yarder out, which was a little bit of a dud on his part, he was phenomenal on the day. Yeah, Mastro's doing a good job of hitting it.
Danny Cronin, buy or Sone, sponsored by
the Turner Group.
Sone is the king of the North. Thank you. I do look like Jon Snow.
No, you don't.
Buy or Sone. Okay, Ramsey. Buy or Sone, we flip more recruits currently committed to other schools than we lose current commits to. Wait, did I ask that already?
We already did this one.
It wasn't the blue chip one.
Just because a man complimented you doesn't mean you need to give him airtime.
I said if they compliment me, I'm reading it. In the chat, real quick, Keyston asked, should Jordan Travis sit to rest more against Virginia Tech?
Get ahead, be in control of the game, and yeah, hopefully you can let Tater get in there and have a little burn, and maybe even AJ. I don't know if they would play Brock right now. Still coming back from that.
Okay. Let's go to our final segment. That was Buy or Sone, sponsored by the Turner Group. Let's talk some recruiting questions as we finish up the mailbag here, Zach. This is sponsored by Football Coach College Dynasty. I want to let the people know what Football Coach College Dynasty is.
It is a video game that you can get on Steam, on PC.
Steam.
The game has become so popular that they had to raise the price. So it's no longer $12, it's $15. Still,
hey, we tried to tell you guys to get it while it was a great deal. It's still a very good deal, but you had your chance. If you didn't get on the ground floor, that's on you.
You better get it now. It's still in development, right? Like it's an insanely in-depth game, but they're updating this game, like weekly or bi-weekly with really cool features. So I'm having a ton of fun playing it in my Georgia State dynasty right now. We're in the playoffs every year. They have the 12-team playoff already instituted into the game. You can do conference realignment. You give NIL to your players. You can get guys out of the transfer portal. It's a lot of fun. Football Coach College Dynasty, available on Steam on the PC for $15.
Find someone who loves you like Zach loves playing Football Coach College Dynasty. Kunahoon, 25. Do you like where D-line recruiting is trending with the expanded board? Please explain.
I mean, yes. Like I like it more than what was going on over the summer. We can talk more about like the kind of timeline of how D-line recruiting has unfolded this cycle. But the summer recruiting of D-line, I think we can all agree, is pretty unacceptable. Like, they got pretty much no defensive linemen on campus for OBs besides Alex January, who they had no shot at, who committed to Texas.
One of the worst body language interviews I think Chris and I have ever covered.
Like,
and Chris covered a lot more than I have.
The kid visited FSU, then committed to Texas like the week or two after. So, yeah, I mean, I like that they're expanding the board, and I think that's a positive development. It's something that should have happened 3 months ago. That's kind of where my mind is at, but we're here now, right? Like, they're doing what they can to expand the board. I like that they sent some coaches to go see some guys over the weekend. Mike Norvell stopped in the Atlanta area for 4-star edge rusher Cameron Fontaine. I think I'm saying that right.
Fontaine.
The USC commit who has scheduled a visit to FSU. You can read that on Noles247.com. Dane Draper reported that yesterday.
Dane's
And
dropping.
then, they offered a new guy out of Maryland, 6'6" edge rusher, who I like a lot and Dane loves.
What's his name, Zach?
What's his name? Say his name.
Lugar,
Say my name.
Say his name.
Edokpai. I don't know how to say his last name, but he's a really talented player and a guy that's kind of blown up on the recruiting scene this month. And FSU has already locked in an official visit with him. You can read that on Noles247.com right now. Reported by Steve Wiltfong. We also confirmed that visit yesterday.
He beat me to the punch.
Haha. You snooze, you lose.
Yeah.
So no, I like that they're expanding the board, but my point being, like, I wish this would have happened earlier, and we'll kind of see where things go.
Zach, real quick on this. Would you say there was an LJ McCray, who's officially visiting this coming weekend, fixation, and that caused hesitation?
To expand the board?
Yeah, in the summer months when LJ McCray never visited.
Yeah, I think it was LJ McCray. I think it was Kamarion Franklin. I think it was a number of those guys that, we knew, like, just viewing from afar, not being in the middle of a recruitment, we knew that this wasn't likely. LJ McCray has not stepped foot in Tallahassee since March.
After he showed up to Tallahassee a ton, like in a window too.
Yeah, like they were one of the first big time schools in on LJ McCray.
Florida's always been there. Georgia very much trended from that March point through the end of summer.
It just felt like over the summer there wasn't like an effort to get guys on campus, and it was worrisome. And the fact that when they didn't step on campus and you got to early July and then early August, why from that point was there not a bigger effort to expand the board? That's happened since then, but that's my point. Like I don't know if it was just LJ McCray, Chris. It was a number of guys that maybe they thought they had a better chance with that they didn't. And to me, it was pretty clear that they didn't, because those guys were not stepping foot on campus.
All right, we got Zach fired up. Keep him coming, Brendan.
To be fair, Zach gets concerned about everything, so it's tough to tell when he's Chicken Little and when it's a real thing.
Thanks, Brendan.
I was trying to get him more fired up. Didn't work. Bloom24 asks, is there any push from FSU staff to get KJ Bolden to switch the Miami game visit to an unofficial, use as official for the weekend before signing day?
I think that is actually in discussion, because they don't want to do a lot of in-season OVs. It's just not, it's a strategy they've moved away from. They've kind of trended that way over the past couple of years. Back when Willie Taggart was here, they did a ton of in-season OVs. When
Look how those went. I'm sorry.
When Norvell first arrived, VTech game, when Norvell first arrived, he did a ton of in-season OVs. Like I remember that Notre Dame game, they did Travis Hunter, Jaleel Skinner, names blast from the past. But
look how those went.
Yeah, they've not done a ton of that. The only scheduled OV that I know of that I've been told is LJ McCray for this weekend. I think the KJ Bolden thing is up in the air. I know Jeremiah Smith told me last week or the week before that he could OV for the Miami game. We'll see. I think they prefer to have guys OV after the season. And there are some scheduling conflicts with that with guys in the state of Florida. I don't know how Georgia works, but I know like a guy like last year, like Edwin Joseph, like they had to work kind of around his playoff schedule because Chaminade Madonna, the school that Jeremiah Smith now attends, they're usually deep in the playoff race and in the state title. So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I think that's definitely up for discussion. I would expect FSU to try and get most of their guys to OV after the season.
To add to Zach's point, the reason they do postseason officials versus in-season officials, it's just the ability to spend time with people, dedicate resources. It's tough during a game day. You kind of wipe out on a game day. You probably wipe out at least about 9 hours of a visit. And given they get the game day experience, but you still try to get the kid here unofficially for a game day to have that experience, get them back for an official where they can be a little bit more, deep and personal.
Agreed.
There are no more questions. Last one I'll throw to you, Zach, is realistically, we joked about flip candidates and my article and whatnot. Like, how many legitimate players do you think FSU will end up flipping into this class with currently 21?
Didn't we already go over this?
No, we never did a number.
How many exactly? I mean, two to three. Like that's where I would go right now. Like I think, they're trying to flip at least one wide receiver. a defensive lineman, maybe an edge rusher like that. That's kind of where my head's at.
What about a DB?
They could flip a DB. Yeah, I mean, I would say 2 to 3.
What would you say, Chris?
Zach's a recruiting guy.
All right. I think that's all we got. Thank you to everyone for following along. Thanks everyone for asking questions. Sorry, it's an hour and 50-minute podcast. We try to get through what we can get through, but we do appreciate everyone listening, responding. Always fun when you guys think of fun questions and compliment me in the process. Oh boy, no. Okay, Chris, go ahead. Talk about it. There's a listening audience too, so go ahead.
Somebody asked if I'm still as in love with Jeremiah Byers as I once was, where I said I would have his children, offspring. My boy JB had a rough time in Clemson. It was rough. I still think Jeremiah Byers has immense talent. I think he is the most athletically gifted offensive lineman that's currently playing for FSU. Without hesitation. But it's got to come together. He's got to get better at just being in the right spot. And he's always been a little peaks and valleys in the 4 games, obviously more valleys in the Clemson game. I think the key for him going forward more than anything is when you lose, don't lose so bad.
That was, remember, a talking point, like, and he's gotten much better at it with like Darius Washington earlier in his career when he lost, like they were catastrophic losses. And that's gotten so much better. Even against Clemson, he had some like not great reps and they just weren't catastrophic. And that's what you need. You need consistency above all else on the offensive line. All right. Anyways, thank you, everyone. Thank you to our sponsors. For Zach Blossy and Christy, I'm Brendan Sone. This has been On the Bench. I'm blinking to make sure I get my right amount in before the end of the show. We'll talk to you guys next time.